Hey, it's Jeremy from Jeremy.net. I'm a comic book artist, writer, creator, self-publisher, and I share my creative process here with you online. If you enjoy this channel, like to get additional bonus live streams twice a month, you become a Patreon subscriber for as little as $2 a month. Get 2 extra long Patreon live streams. We also have a Patreon exclusive Discord server where we share tips, feedback, process, and more. Share art tips. You also get access to an online digital archive. You can read my comic books online. But $2 a month gets you in. There's higher tiers for higher rewards. Patreon.com/GERIMI. If you'd like to get a free digital sketchbook, work in progress animated GIFs delivered right to your inbox, blog posts about what I'm reading, what I'm watching, what's inspiring me creatively, you can sign up for my free monthly newsletter at newsletter.jeremy.net. And if you'd like to pick up physical copies of my comic books, or if you read digitally on Kindle, you can go to amazon.jeremy.net. I'll forward you to my Amazon author page. You can pick up my books there. So head on over, check it out. And if you'd like to see what's inside those books before you buy, if you go to the homepage of my YouTube channel, there are book flip-throughs if you scroll down on the homepage. So head on over, check that out. There's links in the description for the video. And if you're watching on Twitch, there are links in the About Me tab. So let's do some drawing. Let's see here. I see Byron and Omar in the chat. Hey guys, hey, how you doing? Thanks for showing up. Thanks for popping in. So I finished thumbnailing this entire storyboard series that I've been working on with this story with the astronaut. To be honest, I thought I'd already be fairly along with the cleanup of the thumbnails, but I decided to tidy up my studio a bit because it has been a bit of a mess lately, and I just needed a little bit of physical clearing of space just to help me think better. Sometimes when your studio is too cluttered, it just sort of, backs up the mind. It just makes it like kind of a cluttered environment. You can't focus. Anyway, I got to the final shot, and I'm going to go back now to the beginning. And from here, it's a matter of taking these shots and transcribing them to the actual storyboard layout that I have. So let's see here. There's a little bit of spinning up time in my brain in terms of me trying to decide how I want to frame all of these shots, because part of my process is, you've seen me do it with comic books for years, is figure out what my end shot is and work backwards. And so, for instance, starting with this space station sort of spinning, I really feel like the fourth shot in this thumbnail sequence right here, this shot is what I want to start with, and then basically have shots, 1 through 3, I can just zoom out of that or just shrink down the space station. So I'm going to start by drawing it in that first shot. Kind of like that's my main story beat, really. So I guess I can begin by taking this section, this shot, this frame, and I'm going to do a copy all. So it's going to get the lines and the background. Actually, you know what? To be honest, the only times I need to copy all is like copy merge in Photoshop. So you're getting the drawing in the background. The only time I need to copy to copy all is when I've got a background on a separate layer, like these later frames. But for this sequence, I can just go up here and, you know what? Copy all is fine, just because I'd be dropping this to a low opacity and drawing over it anyway. I don't know why it really matters. It doesn't. So I have a template here for actual storyboards in the proper widescreen format. So I'm going to paste my thumbnail in here. Let me zoom out a little bit, and I am just going to drag this out until it fills the frame. Put that behind the frame boards. So that looks about right. Let's drop the opacity on this down to, say, 10-ish%. And again, I'm going to need the help of my handy dandy thumbnails. I have to go back and grab the reference image of the space station, because this space station has gone through a bunch of changes. Let's see. HJ Mars is in the chat. He says, hey, Jeremy. Sorry for not showing up recently. I've been really busy with school. You know what? School is more important. Streams are just fun and bonus. I am glad that you are prioritizing your priorities. But it is nice to see you and glad you were able to drop by. I hope school's going well for you. You know, it's weird. Some people talk about how much they hated high school. And oddly enough, for the most part, I think I actually really enjoyed school. I had I was able to take, I was taking art classes every year of high school. And mostly, I'm a big nerd, so I didn't really have a problem with the school work and the studying. And I was pretty much able to work it out so that I was able to finish most of my schoolwork during school hours, either like during our downtimes, like in a class, I would usually finish my homework during whatever break time we had, time when we were supposed to sort of at the end of the class, last 10 minutes to get started on our homework. I would usually try to finish my homework. And if I had a class that was easy or we didn't have stuff, then I would do my homework for other classes during that period. So for the most part, I had very little homework. And then in my spare times, I could just draw. Or, well, once I got a job and then I was running track, that kind of made it a little bit more pressure, because sometimes I'd finish school, go to track practice, finish track practice around 4:30, dash home. Well, finish around 4, dash home, shower, try to get to work by 5, work from 5 till 10, get home around 10:30, and then maybe have a half hour to either draw, or if I did have homework, do that until around, 10:30, 11, and then call it a night and do it all over again. So sleep-wise, it was rough, but, I actually kind of enjoyed school. I am a curious, nerdy type, so school works well for me. Let's see here. HJ says, yeah, not going bad, thanks. Got some mock exams in November, so hopefully I'll do well in that. Okay, good luck to you. Let's see here. Okay, down here, I've got these tiny little sketches of the space station. Let's see. Okay, so this shot of the space station here is for the exact purpose of the image that I'm using now. I wanted to sort of see what the space station would look like at the angle that I was using in that part of the story. So what I'm actually wondering is if I can just take this shot and just paste it in. So let's go back into this space station layer. Of course, I've got the panels on different layers. All right. Well, let's duplicate. So I've got a copy of the space station that is not going to be attached to the solar panels. This way, when I take this, and actually I should probably duplicate this so I can keep that separate as well. I'm just merging layers so that when I paste this, it'll give me exactly what I want, which is a single layer without gray that I have to cut out or crop around. I can come back to that other frame. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. Paste. I'm going to duplicate again because I may have to manipulate this a bit. Let's see what happens if I have the station rotated that way. Let's see here. Hey! Kingslow Fitness in the chat. It says school is fun. Programming practice. It says I was told to call my smartest friend, and I remembered you're live now. Otherwise, I would have jumped in your I was told to call my smartest friend. I remembered you were live now. Otherwise, I would have jumped in your Discord. Well, hey man, glad to be here. Glad you're here. Always fun to have you in the chat. So I guess what I'm trying to decide right now is whether I want to just use this shot at the angle that I have it, or whether I need to redraw it at a different angle. And the reason why redrawing at a different angle might be necessary is if I jump back to my thumbnails, let's hide the space station, go back to the first sheet, is I want to have the shot zoom in organically into the location where the astronaut is going to be working on a set of panels and working on repairing some circuit boards. So really, it's like I have to work. This again goes to the whole working backwards thing. So really, I might need to drop another frame in here and then kind of create the connective tissue between the two. I don't know what they call this officially in concept design or in film production, but I almost call it back in my mind. I think of it as backing out of a shot, meaning I've figured out what the most important image is, and then I'm just producing all the images that will lead up to it or will connect two different key shots, two different master shots. So really, let me take this, copy this, so really what I need is an angle of the space station that will organically zoom into this shot of this panel open with the astronaut doing repairs. So it's almost like I need to project outward and say, what angle of this space station will show me what angle of this space station will lead into, I'm going to put another layer on here. What angle will from this will lead to that? Because that's the shot that we're heading towards. So I'm always thinking about what is the shot that came before and how does this link up to it? And what is the shot that comes after lead up to it? So I had started by thinking, oh, I'm going to work out the space station shot. And then from there, zoom backwards to the just the space where you're really zoomed out from the space station and slowly zooming in. But I realized that this shot that I was going to be starting with is not at the angle that I need. And that's kind of what I had when I was looking at the space station. I had two different angles that it was drawn from. But I kind of want to just take a fresh look at this instead of forcing myself to redraw it from that angle I was looking at. So let me get rid of this here. Let's take the space station. Let's move it over a bit. This is nice to be able to just have reference here in the frame, just scoot it around and then just draw, redraw, move stuff around. If I were working traditionally, be a whole lot of sheets on a light box. Let's see here. And King's Love Fitness says, working backwards, I thought reverse engineering. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm basically reverse engineering a shot. And he says, this reminds me of the last web dev project on meteorites. Your idea was lit to create as a comic or some form of writing. Hey, you know, it sounded like you had an interesting idea you were working on. All I did was suggest framing the story around, you know, the person is a person as opposed to a meteorite. But yeah, it's I hope it's something you get a chance to do and that you have fun with it. Let's see here. So I guess what I'm starting with is I've got that cylinder. So I'm looking at the perspective of that close-up shot of repairing the space station. And then I'm thinking, all right, if we zoom out from that, We get the entire cylinder that's on the side. Of the space station. And then if we zoom out from that, we get the entire space station itself. Let's see here. HJ says, I was rewatching the drawovers you did of me and Tyler's characters recently, and we were thinking of requesting another at some point soon, if that'd be okay. Yeah, I'm more than happy to. It's a nice change of pace for me, and it feels like I'm helping out other creatives and giving back. So yeah, sure. Anytime you guys want to, you guys can just message me on Instagram, send me an image, and if there's something that you feel would be useful for me to know about that character in terms of like hero, villain, I mean, you don't need to give me a whole character bio, but it's more just sort of like I might see the character and it's just a design. I don't know the context. Maybe it's something where this character is like going to be, a hero that turns evil, or they ride a certain vehicle and I need to incorporate the vehicle, or maybe they're from a certain planet and maybe they're supposed to be like an ice creature and I might not know from it that they're an ice creature. If there's something unique about it, if you draw like a robot or a suit of armor and that armor is supposed to have a certain purpose in the story or work in a certain environment, then I might think of, oh, well, you can add this element to it, that element to it. So it's just sort of that kind of thing. Supplemental information is hard to list, like, oh, I need this and that, because you don't really know what you need until you start looking at something and saying, what is this missing? That's when you start thinking about like when I see any design, I look at it, and if it tells me everything I need to know about it, then I'm like, good, it's a good design, it's done, I wouldn't change anything. But if I look at it and I feel like it's missing something, then that leads me to questions of like, well, how does this vehicle relate, this armor or this vehicle, this character relate to other characters? Who is this person's antagonist? And a lot of times I actually like to design antagonists and protagonists together, like designing the hero and the villain at the same time, so I can figure out how to make them contrast physically, emotionally, color palette wise, those kind of things. So yeah, sure, totally up for it. Let's see here. HJ says, we've been working together now as equal creative partners in our new comic book universe between schoolwork. That's awesome, man. I mean, it's really hard to I mean, I feel like I have hard enough time getting my comics done, working my day job, but, balancing schoolwork. But you've got a creative partner. So that I think that makes a big deal. That makes a big difference, having somebody to share the load, bounce ideas off of. Cool. All right. So let's see here. Shut that down. So right now, it's just a matter of figuring out, just redrawing this space station from the angle that I'm going to need it at. When I originally sketched it out, I was just trying to make a pretty looking design. But from here, I'm trying to think in terms of structure and shot angles. Let's see here. Kingslow Fitness says, I actually called upon self as I'm in the console going over JavaScript again, in between time with creating wireframe for the next project, a recipe app, the design sent over to the development team. Sounds like you. Well, hey, you're also working with a creative team. Sounds like you got a lot of pots in the fire. Good, man. Everybody's being productive. I will tell you that I have been facing some challenges with these storyboards lately in the sense that I think I do get bored easily. And it sounds weird given that I've worked on long projects for many years. So I'm used to just digging in and doing something. But part of me very much wants to just go back to doing what I think is fun, which is standalone images and working on my next comic. And I don't know why I feel the urge to run away from this project, because this should be for me as fun as making comics, because I'm still telling a story with sequential images. But there's definitely days where I sit down to work at this and it feels more tedious than comic book work. And I'm not sure exactly why. But I think about these things when I'm working because my mental state when I'm working, how I feel about it emotionally, that can play a big part in affecting how willing I am to complete a project. And so when I feel differently about a project than I normally would anticipate that I feel, I question it. I want to analyze it, because motivation is very, very important. It's probably one of the most important things because creative work is hard. It is. And you need to be able to motivate yourself to complete projects. So when you're feeling unmotivated, demotivated, that can just put a nail in your whole creative flow. I don't want any nails in my creative flow. I want my creative flow fully inflated. Let's see here. Yeah, Kingslow Fitness says storyboarding is the first draft like. He says change it, put in the speech bubbles. Currently, it's like a silent movie. Well, it's going to be a silent movie. There's not going to be any dialogue for this. Writing dialogue for this would just make it into something it doesn't need to be, because this is more about showing off visual storytelling and less about writing. And having to put dialogue in there is just going to create work. It's going to create work that I actually don't want to do, because unlike most writers love dialogue and they hate the plotting and the pacing and the structuring. Dialogue is it's currently my least favorite aspect of the process. I mean, even when I'm making comics, I don't really enjoy writing dialogue. But I say that it currently is my least favorite because my goal moving forward is to try and find ways to look at every aspect of the process and find joy in it. So I don't want to have any parts that I could say, oh, I do like this, but I don't like that. So my goal is to find the joy in dialoguing, to find joy in every aspect of writing, so that the whole creative process becomes holistic, in the sense that whether I'm having a good day or a bad day, I'm doing something that is fulfilling. Because, even the days when it's hard, and there are definitely days when it's hard to draw, I still find the act of just making the marks, working out shapes, working out anatomy, perspective, which can be extremely tedious. I find doing all of these things fulfilling. And right now, not every part of the writing, my current writing process, feels necessary to me, but it doesn't all feel fulfilling. And I want to reach a place internally where each stage that I'm working on is fulfilling something. But yeah, at the moment, this doesn't need dialogue. Or at least creating dialogue won't serve my goals, is what I'm trying to say. I'm going to create another layer so that I have the flexibility of changing the position of the solar panels on this thing. Something I'm trying to remember is to make these shots a little bit more isometric, meaning not using as much perspective on them as I go, because we're still zoomed out pretty far. Okay. Just move this up a little bit. Might be a little too high. Let's see here. King's Little Fitness says, as a joker, he says, I'm thinking in a funny via the dialogue. I did that for my daughter, 2 different Barbie dolls fighting over wearing one's clothes in Jamaican language. I still remember that video. It got hectic. My daughter got scared. She shut down that production. I'm glad I filmed it. Got to find that and post on Discord. That's cool. A little comedy film out there. All right, so I guess what I am trying to do now is position the solar panels so they don't block any of the features that I want to see. Which is a shame because to make a cool silhouette for the space station, it goes right over elements that I want to see. I'm going to turn off that other shot. Let's see here. Let's see what happens if I change the direction. Instead of having the panels leaning away from us, what happens if we have them leaning towards us? Let's try that. This might work. Really what I need to do is finish blocking it in and then look at it as a silhouette and see if storytelling wise the shape works for me. And this is an interesting challenge to prop, or in this case, location design, set design, because when I first designed the space station, I designed it to make an interesting silhouette that kind of said space station to me. So when you look at this as a silhouette, it kind of reads. The challenge is now turning it to view it from a different angle, and then making sure that that different angle, the silhouette, still reads as what I want it to read as. Because if your object or the thing you're designing reads in silhouette from most angles, then it gives you a lot more flexibility and freedom in the visual storytelling. Basically, I can now use the shape of the first solar array. It's not really an array, but it's a set of panels. You can use that first set as kind of a grid for building the next set. Let's turn this off here so I can get a look. At the top part of the space station. I can just erase off the parts that I don't need. Oops. Of course I drew it on the wrong layer. Of course I did. Let's go back up to this layer. Well, now I think it almost makes more sense for me to just draw this out this way. All of these in this perspective. It's not far enough out. That's gotta be farther out. It might be too far out. All right. It's just sort of like eyeball perspective as opposed to properly plotting out perspective points, horizon lines, and vanishing points. It's here. James in the chat. He says, I dozed off, but I'm here now. You know what? Sleep is important. I slept in late before starting today, so I'm not mad at you. He's like, okay, the space station. Yes, we're back on the space station. Now I finished thumbnailing the entire series. So now I am, hey, Mercidian Merchant, also in the chat. Good to see you. Thank you for dropping by. Always nice to have a Twitch, a fellow Twitch member on the stream. The Twitch audience is growing slowly, but it is growing. I finished thumbnailing the entire storyboard sequence, and now I'm dropping them into actual letterbox frame. Let me zoom out so you can see that a little bit. Actual letterbox frame, and I'm redrawing, just cleaning up the thumbnails now. But I realized that the early shots need me to sort of figure out a different angle to draw the space station from. So it's not really that I'm redesigning the space station. I'm just coming at it again, looking at it from a different angle. James says, been playing around with Tintin style eyes some more. I got some good expressions with those. You know, I like those eyes too, because it allows you, the fact that they're kind of featureless, the viewer can project however they feel into it. Like if you have them frowning, the eyes just feel like they're angry. If you have them excited or scared, the mouth excited or scared, the eyes just, the viewer fills in the detail. So I like using those. And I think the nice thing I have found for my work is that I don't have to be trapped or locked into the Tintin eyes. I can use them in some places, but then not use them consistently. Somebody else I've seen who does that with great effect is the artist Stuart Immonen. Like he definitely will draw, he'll use those eyes when it suits him, when it fits a particular scene. But, he'll also switch back to traditional Western comic eyes as needed. So I feel like this is kind of mission accomplished. Hopefully this won't bite me in the ass. But the goal for redrawing this space station was I need to have a wide shot of the whole space station, but it needs to include, zoom in here so you guys can see what I'm talking about. This is a wide shot of the space station, but it also gives a layout for every single scene that we're going to see in the exterior. So later on, we're going to see, well, very soon, we're going to zoom into, this is where the pod that has the panels the astronaut is repairing, that's in there. The window where the dog is going to be watching from is in here. The dog is going to follow the astronaut when the astronaut realizes they're running out of oxygen. It's going to follow inside the space station here, down, and then through the body of the space station. The astronaut is going to travel over to the airlock. Here's where the astronaut's going to be trying to get in, and there's going to be another window down at this end where the dog is then going to watch, and then the dog is going to go in, and inside the manual override is going to be inside that chamber. So really, this shot is my master shot. And when I'm going to try and set it up so that when I return to other scenes or when I cut to other shots that are closer, that this geography will hopefully be communicated. And then I'll try to switch to a slightly wide shot to show them moving around this station. Even if it's from a different angle, hopefully showing enough of it that the geography will make sense. So this really is my master shot, sort of my staging for the whole thing. That was the goal I wanted to accomplish by redrawing this. And it also meant figuring out an angle to have these solar panels. And I'll tell you, even though I just went through all of that work of drawing this, part of me wants to just see what it looks like if I move the solar panels a little bit more, tilt them slightly more forward so that the pod over here isn't completely covered. Because right now one end of the pod is covered. We're going to kind of zoom past it. But I also want to see what it looks like if I have, well, the problem is if I have the solar panels parallel, it feels kind of boring. The space station doesn't feel dynamic. But if I tilt this up, if I have them tilted, switch to blue. If I have them tilted up, then we start having them interfering with the airlock sequence. So it's like I need to make sure that I'm not blocking the actual stage with these solar panels. The solar panels are essential, but they also need to not block anything that's important. And now, this all is important because I also don't want the silhouette of the space station to be boring. If it's just that tube with two H's going next to it, or well, a single H, on either side, that's a little bit boring. Whereas if I go to the previous shot, the original shot that I had of it, it's having it off of an angle that's interesting, tilted to a degree that's interesting. So I've been kind of fighting with that in working out all of this. But I think I've got something that works. Sweet Jesus, the time goes by fast. We're already 50 minutes in. I had no idea the time was going by that fast. You guys tell me, is it just that the time goes by fast, or am I really, really slow? Because there's times when I look up and there's times when I think I'm being productive and I'm working out the problems. And I'm talking to you guys about what I'm working through. And I think, oh, I'm making a lot of progress. And then I look up and I realize, oh, all I've done is just sketch out one space station. Really, most of the time has been working on the angle of the solar panels. And I guess because I feel like in an hour's time, I always want to have gotten more done than I get done. And again, that's me beating up on myself, which I always tell you guys, give yourself some grace. Don't be so hard on yourselves. I need to tell myself to do the same. All right. This top line is a little wonky. Redraw that. Let's see here. King's Little Fitness says good storytelling. I hope so, because that is kind of the point of this entire exercise. To work out all of the landmarks to make the storytelling feel more seamless. Put this here. And there's little things that I wanted to keep in mind. Like, for instance, up here at this end of the space station, to make the window that the dog looks out of hexagonal. I mentioned this in a previous live stream, but instead of making it round, to make it hexagonal, for the sole purpose to differentiate it from the window that we'll see later on. So I think that works for the space station. And I'm fussing with it just because I want to, this is going to be my master shot. So in the same way that I grabbed that other shot of the space station and pasted it in from my thumbnails, this is a shot. This image is one that I'm going to, I guess, reuse around different components of the story. So I'm just separating these modules a little bit more. See here. King's Low Fitness says, and the space station itself is a big part of the picture as you zoom in to go into the world within it. Yeah. I mean, this is like designing, I don't know, the Death Star be a bit of an exaggeration, but I don't know, it'd be like designing a large I don't know. Maybe like design the Millennium Falcon, because it's not a tiny ship. I mean, it's not as big as designing, say, the Battlestar Galactica, but it's bigger than a Viper. You know what? I would say that it's sort of along the lines of, if you've watched The Mandalorian at all, it's kind of like designing the Razor Crest, the previous ship that the Mandalorian flew before he switched to that smaller starfighter, because it is a vehicle unto itself, but it is a full set with different compartments inside. This thing is bigger than the Razor Crest, but it would, but I kind of like, in terms of the staging that it takes up in this story, I would put it kind of on that level. There was one other thing that I needed. I am tempted to merge these two together, but instead I'm just going to group them. When I say these two things, I mean the solar panels of the space station. Like, even though I've started drawing stuff on top of it that isn't just the solar panels, God forbid I need to change something and it's flattened and I have to erase around it. So I'm just going to leave them grouped instead of merged. And if I need them later on, I can take that group and make a duplicate and merge that. But the last thing that I wanted to finish up before I change is that I also was trying to remember where I put the... Yeah, I had originally designed like an arm, a space arm to attach underneath. And it doesn't play any role in the story at all. It's there because I feel like that's something you would have outside of an airlock. But I'm looking at that now and I'm wondering whether I still want to keep it in. Maybe I do, but what I do is, instead of having it on the bottom the way it's in my current shot, maybe what I do is I put it on the side. So I've got it down here because I don't want it to interfere with any part of the story. It's kind of a strange thing. The reason for putting it in there is because it feels like that's something that they would have, but I also don't want to put it in a position where the viewer is going to say, when is the arm going to come into play? I don't want to put it in a spot that's going to be distracting. So it's there to add some, I guess, a sense of utility. Like, it feels, to make it feel real, not in the sense of photorealistic, but real in the sense of, oh, there's equipment on here that a space station would have, but not make it so prominent that you question, when is it going to get used, or why did it not get used? And that's a very fine line, because theoretically, if you put something in the story, you put it there because you plan to use it. But in this sense, I don't want to use it. I just want it to be there to make the thing feel lived in. Yeah, I think that works for me. Now I'm squinting, kind of giving the silhouette a squint test, which, if you really want to see what it's going to look like as a silhouette, what I can do is, like I said, let me rename Space Station 2.0. Now I can take this, duplicate, merge the duplicate. That's something interesting. I did not know that. Normally, to merge, I would hit this and I would say flatten. I did not know that if you just pinch a group, you can just flatten it instantly. The same way that you normally merge groups by just grabbing two layers. on the tablet and just pinching them together, and those layers will merge. I didn't realize you could do that with the group instead of going to the menu. So that's kind of handy. Let's see here. So Byron says, if we're going for the Millennium Falcon, then we have to do it like Lucas did, base it off a hamburger. Yum, yum. Well, this thing, I mean, given that it's elongated, I guess it feels like it'd be more based off of a candy cane than a hamburger. I don't know. I don't know what this would be. Maybe waffle fries? Waffle fries, maybe? Waffle fries space station? I don't know. Let's see. James says, if you squint, it's mint. Well, that's a bit of a stretch. No, I see what you're trying to do there. I like the alliteration. I like a good, if it fits, you must acquit type rhyme. Yeah, I was squinting trying to see the silhouette. But another thing that I could do really quickly is go to the selection and switch to the automatic, which is kind of like their equivalent of the magic wand, and select the area outside of it. Then invert that selection, create a new layer, and fill, and now I can see the silhouette. Space station's still there, silhouette on top. So the real question is, I mean, yeah, it kind of also reads like a periscope, which I'm fine with. But to me, the most important thing is, does this silhouette read as space station? And like I said, if the solar panels were tilted a little bit further towards the far end to the right end, then that would be at an angle that would be perfect, but it would be blocking that the panel that I need to zoom into in the beginning. So this feels like it is the best balance between design and action. In fact, that's what we're going to call this when I post the replay. I'm going to call it design versus action. Or maybe balancing. I don't know. Design and action will be in the name of it. I'll mull it over when I'm saving out the thumbnail. But on that note, and King's Love Fitness says, see it as a blur, glasses off. Looks like a logo or a brand. Yeah, well, and the nice thing is I always could just take that layer and just blur it. You can see what the blurry version looks like. So, and I honestly, looking at it as a blur, I still vaguely get, what I want. But I think seeing it as a silhouette tells me more importantly how something is going to read if someone only sees it for a second and has a chance to try and register. The squinting is more just sort of like, as opposed to, like, I don't know, it helps. When you look at a piece of artwork and you squint at it, you can really, all of the detail falls away. And I know that blurring digitally does that, but for some reason, it feels more effective to me to be doing it with my own eyes, looking at it, versus just blurring it and seeing what it looks like, how much you can read. I mean, I've been using the squint method since I was a child, looking at stuff like, how's that look? And then squinting at it to make detail drop. That just feels more organic to me. But the tools are there if you want to do the blur test versus the squint test versus the silhouette test. But overall, hey, got a revised space station. This will work for all the shots leading up to it and all the shots coming prior. So yeah, I'll just move through and finish cleaning up these thumbnails. Again, I kind of hoped that I'd finished at least a few panels before moving on. But we are past the top of the hour, so we're going to wrap it up here. But hey, let's say you want hours and hours more of live streams, not just the ones that are posted, the replays that are posted here, but you want to see me doing some deep dives into some of the artistic greats like George Bridgman, Ken Holtgren, some Andrew Loomis. There's a couple of Loomis books in there that a couple of Loomis images I've done, not a lot of Loomis. Or, there was somebody else I was thinking of. All right, my brain's a little loopy from this. Point being is that on Patreon, we do something that's exclusive for patrons. It's called Art Book Study Group, where we do deep dives in some of the best art books around. I sit down, open them up, do studies from the books. I talk about what I'm learning, what I don't know, where my ignorance and my flaws are, how I'm trying to improve. I'm literally showing you the steps that I use to become a better artist, which is just find books by great artists, great educational material, and just study from them and compare it to what I can do versus what I can't do, and try to level up. Take stabs at doing things that I know I can't do. And we've got hundreds of hours of those sessions. All the replays are available for Patreon subscribers. So as little as $2 a month gets you in the door. You also get access to our Patreon exclusive Discord server. You know, as King's Little Fitness mentioned, he's on there, posts stuff all the time, real active in the community, and I really appreciate it. Always sharing feedback, sharing his work. I share more of my work in progress throughout the week, so it's not just what you see here on live streams. It's also work that we just post and talk about. We share things that we see online, cool videos, cool art resources, cool articles, just feedback, shop talk, and more. $2 a month gets you in. Patreon.com/GERIMI. Head on over, become a subscriber. If you would like to get a free digital sketchbook, work in progress animated GIFs delivered right to your inbox, blog posts about what I'm reading, what I'm watching, what's inspiring me creatively, you can sign up for my free monthly newsletter at newsletter.jeremy.net. And if you'd like to purchase physical copies of my comic books or to read digitally on Kindle, you can go to amazon.jeremy.net. You can pick up books like my first graphic novel. I'm trying to find a way to position this so my ring light isn't reflecting on the cover. Eye of the Gods. It's a standalone psychological thriller. It's about a man cursed with visions he cannot control. You can also check out my most recent comic book series, Morning Star. It is a retelling of Lucifer's fall from heaven as a Western. It's an 8-issue series. Volume 1 contains issues 1 through 4. Volume 2 contains issues 5 through 8, the conclusion of the series. Both volumes have extensive back matter, character thumbnails, script excerpts, character designs, photo reference. I basically show you how I put the entire series together. You can check all of that out. And if you want to check it out before you purchase, again, homepage of the YouTube channel. Scroll down to book flip-throughs, and there's book flip-throughs for all of those. You can see what's inside before you buy. There's links to all these in the description of the video, and if you're watching on Twitch, there's links in the About tab. All right, gang. Thank you so much for joining me, as always, every week. I appreciate the feedback and the conversation, the shop talk while we're working. I hope that you guys make progress on all of your creative endeavors. That's it for now. Go be creative.